Okay, so I shared my little story with a few friends on Discord and was told to share it with you fine people. This all happened a little over 10 years ago when I was just starting out in my mechanic career. It's a bit of a long read, but I believe it's worth the time. Due to the nature of the story, some parts locations will be vague. Looking back now, I probably went a little too far at first, but apparently fate had other plans in the end. To start off with a little backstory, I grew up on a farm on the East Coast. Lots of hard work with no pay, and being from a less fortunate family, we never had much. Growing up this way helped me appreciate what little I had, though. Once I was 16, I bought a car with a blown motor and rebuilt it while in auto class. I loved that car. While working for an auto parts store, my mother decided to move down south. Parents were divorced long ago, and since my stepmother was a total nuisance substance user, ruined my father's business, that kind of nuisance, I decided to leave everything behind and move in with my mother, a few states away a few months after turning 18. I barely had enough to get there. Once there, I helped pay the bills with my auto parts store job. For Christmas that year, Mom couldn't get me anything, we were barely getting by. So I scraped up enough to get myself a stereo for my car, a cheap one, but nice to 19-year-old me, and her a gold-plated cross necklace she hung on her rearview mirror. She cried when I gave it to her and still tears up when I talk about it. We lived in a trailer park surrounded by trees covered in Spanish moss, hidden from the main road and a few miles away from the nearest town. We knew our neighbors well, as there were only around 8 other trailers on this lot. Nice people, apart from one that was next to us. I'll call him Chad. Chad was in the military and worked on a nearby base. He was also a military police officer. As such, he never cared when he or his buddies were being too loud at night, left trash everywhere and refused to clean it up, and generally was just a jerk to everyone. He even yelled at a 90-year-old lady for asking him to clean up the beer bottles he and his friends threw into her rose garden. The whole neighborhood disliked Chad and his inconsiderate friends. One spring, I blew a head gasket in my car, so I was in my little driveway parked next to my mom's car. Her boyfriend's truck was parked in front of the trailer out of the way. Anyway, late one night as I was working on my car, Chad's buddies were making their drinking rounds, walking all over the park, throwing bottles everywhere, relieving themselves on cars, being jerks. They saw me working on my car and came right over to make fun of me for being poor, not having a better car, still living with my mom at 19, everything. I tried to just ignore them since I was not a confrontational person. I asked them to let me be so I can get this done. To this, they just made a bit more fun of me and left when they realized they weren't getting a reaction from me. Later on, they all went into Chad's trailer and continued partying, so I packed up my tools and parts and took everything inside. I ensured all our doors were locked and went to bed. That morning I woke up to all our car's doors open and ransacked. I was furious. Missing was my stereo, my mom's gold cross, and her boyfriend's truck stereo was an expensive HUD style. We called the police, and they didn't want to do anything about it. As the officer was talking to me saying, "This isn't worth the department's time," something in me snapped. I politely said, "Okay, I get it. We'll be sure to keep a watch out for next time then," and the police left. I went inside and started thinking of how I was going to get even. No one will make my mom cry. So I went to Chad's door and asked him where our stuff was. He was hungover, and I woke him up at 7 a.m. He was not happy, but let it slip that he doesn't know where his friends took it. So I had him. I told him he has 24 hours and nothing will be done. He laughed it off and slammed the door in my face. It was on. Later that night came a huge storm. Heavy rain, lots of thunder, the works. So at 1 a.m., I dressed up in some old clothes and thermals, grabbed my tools, and went out to his car. He had a nice new little Nissan, and to me, it looked a little too nice. I got under it and took off everything I possibly could without being caught. I unbolted every nut, cut every wire, cut a few holes in the gas tank, sliced his tires from the inside sidewalls, and took off the oil pan. I went crazy on this poor little car. My father was a mechanic for many years, and growing up with him, I learned a lot about how to destroy a car without being noticed. Thanks to the storm, Chad never heard a thing. After a few hours of getting my revenge, I went back inside and cleaned up. Tossing my clothes in the wash and going to bed happy, I was able to cause him some peril. The next morning, I woke up to the blissful sounds of him cursing and punching his car that had no chance of ever working again. All those parts of his eye threw into a small pond just over the fence near the edge of the lot. They'll never be found. He was so angry he broke all the glass and dented several body panels. The police were called, and they asked around. Everybody said he had anger issues and was within reason that he would take it out on his own car. Or his wife, who was hardly around due to him being him. But they had a kid, so I guess they were making it work somehow. The police, being the lazy jerks I knew them to be from the day before, didn't do a thing and chalked it up to him having issues and left. In any other revenge story, this would be it, right? I got my revenge, and he has to pay. Oh, but as fate would have it, I was but a cog in life's plan to give him what he had coming. I never planned this part, but it makes me smile every time I think back. So since he didn't have a car anymore, he had it towed off. His wife, at least I thought it was his wife, would come over to spend some time with him. One thing that perplexed me is, there was no kid in tow as usual, and her voice was different. So I got a webcam and set it up in my window, a perfect spot to see who was coming in and out, and turns out, he was dating other people. After a little over a month, I compiled every girl, every conversation, and every front porch goodbye into a folder and caught his wife bringing their son by when he was out one evening. I asked her to come in, and I showed her the clips. She was livid. She was so angry she called her dad and ordered a U-Haul. I helped her gather anything she said was hers, including a 55-inch TV. It was 2009. Those were still very nice, the fridge, and even the washer and dryer. She gave me $100 for my time, hugged me, and thanked me over and over for letting her know just how much of a jerk he really is. That's when I told her he did me wrong too and explained what had happened to me and my family. She was slack-jawed and called her dad again. She told me this wasn't over and she felt so bad for us having to deal with him. An hour later, she came back with her dad, and he gave me another $200 and said he was very appreciative that someone did the right thing. He shook my hand, thanked me again, and I never saw him after. The most amazing thing was when Chad came home after drinking and realizing all the stuff was gone. He destroyed the trailer, kicked out walls, windows, ripped off the door, everything. Police were called again by the old lady neighbor, and he was put in cuffs and taken away. He was never heard from again, but I was told from the nice landlord who owned the whole lot he was on the tab for all the damages and for rent and took him to court. They had to wait because apparently he made a fuss at the station and hit a police officer. I don't know what happened after this since we moved. So his life is probably still ruined, and I couldn't care less. I bought Mom alternatives for what she lost, me another stereo, and bought one for Mom's boyfriend too that wasn't as good as his old one, but was still nice. I told him the full story over a hangout with his friends, and we had the best night. Take care of your mechanic friends. The entitled child I'm writing about happens to be my little sister, who's about 3 years younger than me. She's like those troublesome kids you want to scold harshly. Recently, I got a new phone, which my father got me as a reward for performing well in my final exams. This really upset her, and she didn't talk to me for about 3 days after I received it. She's always trying to make our parents take it away from me because she doesn't deserve it or she's always on it. You don't know what she's doing, but they simply ignore her. This event happened today. I don't have entitled parents, but somehow my sister turned out to be the entitled child she is, maybe because of the troublesome children she's friends with. She had plans to go to some picnic or whatever with her difficult friends. I was doing an assignment when I overheard her arguing with our mother right outside my room. "Mom, all of my friends have a phone, but I don't," she complained. "So? I would have gotten you one if you did well in your final exams," our mother replied. For context, my sister managed to get a failing grade and 2 average grades in her finals. Her school has told her that she has to retake the exams she did poorly in. Ugh, my friends are going to think of me as poor, my sister whined. You can take my phone if you need to show off that desperately, our mother offered. No, you have an Android, my sister retorted. Our mother has one of the newest Samsung phones. All of my friends have iPhones. I could take my sister's phone. She's studying right now and wouldn't need it. This child had the audacity to come up to me and grab the phone from my desk, where I was doing my work. I snatched it from her hands. What do you think you're doing? I asked. Mom said I can take it. Give me the password, she demanded. She didn't tell me though, I replied. But she said I can take it, she yelled. Our mother came to my room after hearing my sister yell, and I asked her if she gave her permission. She said that she didn't, and my sister then stomped out of my room while glaring at me as if she wanted me gone or something. Anyway, a few hours later, I kind of forgot about it and went on about my day. Our father came home early, and he hadn't had lunch, so I went downstairs and started to cook something for him. Just then, my sister came in clutching a little bag, the kind every child has. She came into the kitchen, smirked at me, and left. I was confused. So I gave my father lunch and headed upstairs to my room. Since my TV remote is broken, I have to use my phone to play YouTube, Netflix, etc. on the TV. I couldn't find my phone. I checked everywhere but had no luck. Then I went to my father and asked him to call my phone. The call was going through, but I couldn't hear the ringtone. My father suggested that I should go on my laptop and log onto the phone finding service. I did what he told me, and my phone was online. The location was about 6 blocks from where I lived. I immediately knew what had happened. My sister seized the opportunity to take my phone while I was downstairs, and that's why she smirked at me. Now, if you aren't familiar with the phone finding service, it basically shows all of your devices which use your account and their current location, and whether they're online or not. If you put one of your devices into lost mode, you get the option to display any text like your number or address on the device's screen, and it locks your device until you enter the password and account details. My sister is really unwise, so she couldn't have guessed my password since it's random numbers. I put my phone into lost mode, and the text I displayed was, "Don't have an accident again. You forgot your spare undergarments at home." I told my father, and he laughed hard. He also knows that my sister is difficult. He has tried to tell her to fix her attitude several times, but that child is really stubborn. Our mother always saves her, but she also reprimands her when she's in the wrong. I was so excited for her to return home and for me to see her reaction. About 3 hours later, my mother's car pulled up to the driveway. My sister looked enraged. When she saw me, she physically attacked me. She weighs about 15 kilos more than me and really knows how to fight. Luckily, our mother was able to stop her before she started strangling me. She humiliated me. One of my friends saw the screen and told everyone about it, she yelled. Serves you right for taking someone else's property without their consent, I told her with a smirk. That troublesome child then proceeded to spit on my face and attempted to throw my phone to the ground when our mother grabbed it from her. The screen automatically lit up, and my mother saw the text and started snickering. This sent my sister into a rage, and she ran to her room while knocking over one of the fancy vases my mother got as an heirloom. Thankfully, it didn't break, and our mother rushed to her room to scold her. She hasn't stepped out of her room since. This incident took place approximately 2 to 3 years ago. I decided to volunteer for a camp because I really needed to go out more, and I thought, hey, a camp would be nice. 2 friends and I were leaders for a group of 30 children. Almost all of them were well behaved, always listening to us and following the rules. However, there was one exception. This troublesome child was incredibly difficult to manage. He bit, pulled hair, threw objects, hit, choked, and pushed other children. On one occasion, he bit one of the leaders forcefully, but we managed to remove him from the situation. The mother of this problematic child was equally challenging to deal with. She consistently blamed the victims, threatened legal action if her son was expelled, and even encouraged his misbehavior. Reasoning with her was impossible. She claimed to have connections with law enforcement, threatened to have anyone arrested, made racially insensitive comments to others, and repeatedly dismissed her son's actions by saying, "He's just playing," whenever we informed her about his behavior. This situation persisted for about a week until the other children had enough. They decided to confront him physically the next time we went hiking. Only a few girls and boys came to us and disclosed the plan before leaving. My fellow leaders and I exchanged glances and made the questionable decision to allow it to happen, as we were exhausted by the situation. The following day, during our hike, the troublesome child began hitting another child. While one of the leaders and I went ahead to scout the path, the other children confronted the misbehaving child en masse. He endured 10 minutes of hair pulling, kicks, punches, and biting from the other children. When we returned, the group dispersed. The troublesome child looked at us in shock, but I watched as all color drained from his face when my fellow leaders and I winked and simply sat by. Then, with smiles on their faces, the group resumed their confrontation. By the end of it, the troublesome child looked severely injured but was still conscious. Upon our return, the mother became hysterical when she saw her son. She began accusing us and the children of assault when I approached her and whispered, "They were just playing." She attempted to strike me, but I evaded her, causing her to fall to the ground thanks to my father for those reflexes. I then informed her that she and her son were banned from the camp. She left hastily, with her crying son following behind. Some days later, law enforcement arrived due to a report of child assault. The officers spoke with the children and the other parents, but departed shortly after observing the children's happiness and overall well-being. The mother attempted to contact law enforcement 4 more times before being arrested for making false accusations. The other parents didn't believe her when she claimed their children were responsible, as she had lied previously. We simply told them her son had tripped and fallen down a hill because he didn't follow the rules, and they accepted this explanation. The children who had informed us of the plan remained quiet and satisfied with the outcome. Story 4. I work as a security officer or door greeter at a large retailer. When I'm working, I have to stand at the door and check receipts, mark returns, and of course, greet customers. In the years 2020 and 2021, that shifted to counting customers and handing out masks. I don't have any major stories, but I have a few snippets, though I'm not sure if some of them are exactly "I don't work here" material. Important information to include: I wear a security uniform complete with a police-style badge, and it's a completely different color than anything the store associates wear. Pretty early on, when I didn't know the store very well, I got a lot of questions about where items in the store were located. Of course, having just started and being stationed exclusively at the front door, I was unable to help much. I tried to point people in the right direction usually, but that was about it. Then, one day as I'm marking a ton of returns due to some incidents, we were told that we needed to mark every single item being returned rather than just marking how many returns the customer had. I felt a tap on the shoulder. I turned to see this older lady who seemed to have been waiting. I told her, "I'm almost done with these returns. Then I can try to help you." I turned back to the return lady and kept writing down product codes and stickering items. I got another tap with an ahem. I repeated what I said before and kept going. I had about 2 things left. The lady tapped me again and said, "I need you to show me where the bedding is." I turned and pointed quickly to the area of the store it was in and told her it was over there. I finished up the stickers and the return lady left. I turned to find the old lady still there. I said, "Is there something else I can help with?" "Yes, I need you to take me to the bedding." I replied, "I'm sorry. I'm security, and I have to stay up here at the front." She huffed and said something like, "Well, I need you to take me because I won't be able to find it on my own." I was really puzzled by this because I had already directed her in the right direction, and there was a big sign above it that literally said bedding. So I responded in kind and pointed again, saying, "It's right under that sign that says bedding. I can't leave the front, so if you need more help, You'll need to find someone back there who can assist you." She just huffed again and walked off. Later on, I had been stationed in the garden part of the store, and I was standing by the door out there. The only people by the door at the time were me and a cashier who was always really quiet. He smiled and nodded a bit, but he was so quiet I had to wonder if he spoke at all, or if he spoke a different language or something. He was a nice enough guy, but certainly not a conversationalist. That's the main point there. Some lady came from inside the store and walked right up to me with purpose in her step. She said, "I'm looking for a certain weed killer. Can you help me find it?" I responded by saying, "I'm not really sure where it is, but I think it's on the inside aisles of the garden center. I can try to call a garden center employee to help." She said, "Why don't you know where it is?" To this, I replied, "I'm just security, ma'am. I don't work for the store." She huffed loudly and walked over to the cashier. He wouldn't have known either. He was just a front-end guy who got stuck back here. But she didn't ask him about that. She pointed at me and loudly said, "What does that guy even do here?" When she got little or no response, she just stormed off. Lastly, we had this manager. For this, I'll call him Ken. He had a habit of pulling associates off their own jobs to help him with whatever he needed help with. His classic line was, "Well, you look like you could use something to do. How about you do this or that?" Most associates would listen to Ken, even when it meant abandoning their own jobs they had been told to do by other managers because he was just below the store manager on the hierarchy. When I was out in garden, he would try to get me to move pallets all the time. I had heard other associates complain about him, so even though I honestly would have loved moving pallets while it was late and super slow, I always refused. He was always annoyed and cited that I wasn't doing anything else anyway, but he knew he couldn't touch me. It always made my day when he got all annoyed because of my response. "Sorry, sir, I'm here to guard the door. I can't abandon my post, or my manager will have me removed." I would then watch Ken move the pallets himself because he couldn't organize his own guys to do it before they went home, all the while listening to a podcast in my ear and doing absolutely nothing. Story 5. This happened about a week ago, and I honestly am still fuming from it. I'm not sure if this belongs in this subreddit, but here goes. First, a little backstory. I'm a mixed ethnicity individual. I've been confused for many races over the course of my 29 years on this planet, but I'm literally Caucasian and African American. Usually, it can be figured out, but the difference with me is my father is Caucasian. Therefore, my hair is straight. I'm originally from Texas and am usually confused for being Mexican. But now I live in Massachusetts, and I've never had an issue with anyone concerning my race, until this day. Also, I am married to a Caucasian woman who had a child before we were married. His father is not in his life as much, and I took the responsibility because I love this woman, and I love this little boy as if he were my own. He's 4 now, and I've been in his life since he was 1. Anyway, on to the story. My wife needed a few things from the grocery store, and she needed to run a few more errands. Usually, she just goes and knocks things out herself because I'm sleepy. I work nights. But this particular day I happened to be awake, and I offered to go for her. She works hard and does a lot, so I definitely felt it was necessary to do something for her so she could just relax for the day. I took my son with me so she could rest up and just take it easy, and it gave me time to spend with my son for some bonding. We completed all of the errands, which went smoothly, and then headed to the grocery store to finish up our day. My son, being a typical 4-year-old, was full of energy, running ahead of me, laughing and speaking to everyone he comes across, which I generally don't mind as long as he doesn't hit anyone and stays within eye view. As I'm making my way down an aisle looking for canned corn, my son jogs to the end of it when an older lady is entering at the other end. My son, being the sweet social butterfly he is, approached and exclaimed and excited, "Hi, me 4 and me Ryan, bless his little heart." The lady looked down and said, "Well, hello there. You shouldn't be running around unattended. Let's go find your parents." I didn't think anything of her statement because I assumed she just hadn't seen me. "Ryan, Come back here, bud, please. He excitedly runs back toward me and starts turning in circles because, he's 4. I'm still searching the shelves as the lady walks past me and stops behind me. Again, I think nothing of it because it's a grocery store, and you have to share the aisles. I turn my basket around and start to walk toward the front cash registers when this lady literally blocks my path. I say excuse me and try to walk around her, and she moves her cart in front of me again. I honestly thought she was just getting confused and said excuse me once again and tried one more time to go around, and she just blocks my path. The following conversation ensues. Me, sorry about that. We'll get out of your way. Lady, oh, I don't think so. You're not going anywhere with that child. Me? You mean my son. Lady, that's not your child. He's white, and you're Mexican. You probably didn't even know his name until he said it to me. Me? Sure, whatever. Lady, can you just move? My wife is at home and anxiously awaiting us. Lady, stop your lies. You're not taking him anywhere, you pervert. This whole time, my son is standing close to me, holding my leg because he was honestly getting scared. I was getting angry because I hadn't had much sleep, and I have a short fuse anyway, thanks, Dad. Me. As you can see, he's standing close to me because he trusts me, and you're scaring him. So how about you buzz off? Lady, no, he's scared because of you. He just doesn't know how to express it yet. She looks at my son. Come on now, sweetie. I'm here to rescue you. Come with me. Thankfully, my son was able to communicate to her he wasn't going anywhere with her, but she was having none of it. She literally grabbed my son and began to run. It caught me off guard because I honestly could not fathom what was actually happening. My son starts screaming loudly because he was so scared, and this lady is just like, "Don't worry, sweetie. He won't hurt you, I promise." Suddenly, I snap back into reality, and I begin to chase after this crazy woman. While running through the store, I yell for people to stop her and that she's kidnapping my son, and thankfully, a worker stops her before she makes the exit. Lady, why are you stopping me? This Mexican here is trying to kidnap my grandson. My son literally is bawling his eyes out and extending his arms out, calling for me. This lady was relentless and would not let go even after he slaps her face multiple times. I laughed a little, not gonna lie. At this point, a manager shows up and asks what's going on. The lady spoke before me. Lady, this pointing at me pervert is trying to kidnap my grandson, and I was just trying to escape. Me, that's my son, you crazy person. Now let him go. The manager didn't know what to believe. I don't blame him. He was caught in a weird situation. So I pulled out my phone and showed him pictures of me and my son that dated a year or so back as proof. This lady still would not give up and accused me of faking them. Like, how would you do that exactly? I'll never know, but whatever. Sadly, there were 2 other ladies there taking the psycho's side and said I was attempting to kidnap my own son because there was no way we were family because of our different skin tones. One even called the police, which I was actually happy about, because I knew they'd be able to review the security cameras. Even still, I called my wife to see if she could come to the store to get this situation cleared up quicker. As soon as I told her what was going on, she zoomed to the store. She got there about the same time as the police. The crazy ladies were giving their statement to the cops when my wife walked in. As soon as she walked in, my son went, "Mama, help. My wife is a true mama bear," and she immediately flew into a rage when she saw this lady holding my son. Wife, let him go now. Lady, sorry, sweetie, I was just trying to protect him from this pervert over here. Lady 2, yeah, we saw him trying to kidnap him, but this lady saved him. The cop looks at the lady and is confused. Officer, I thought this was your grandson. Wife, I have no idea who that lady is. She takes out her phone and shows the officer a picture of my mother-in-law. Lady, okay, I'm sorry, he's not my grandson, but I was only trying to protect him from this dirty pervert over here. Lady 2, Yeah, I witnessed the whole thing. He snatched that child and tried to run away with him. But this lady stopped it. Lady 3. Yes, I saw it too. He needs to be arrested. And you pointing to my wife should be thankful that this lady was here to save your son, because you obviously just let him loose wherever. Wife. Who are you talking about again? All 3 crazy ladies pointed at me. Wife. Oh, you mean my husband. Lady 1. Husband. Wife. Yeah, who do you think called me and got me here so fast? I presented my ID to the officer and the manager, and my wife did the same. We also each showed pictures of us on our phones to prove we were really a family. The cop nodded in approval and handed us our phones back and jotted down a few notes. The 3 ladies, for some reason, still kept trying to say this was all fake and my wife was in on the kidnapping and said we needed to be arrested. My wife lost it at this point and let off some colorful words I won't repeat here, but she definitely got her point across. Then the nail in the coffin came for the psycho trio. The officer turned to the manager and asks, Officer, sir, do the cameras work here? Manager, yes, we have them inside and out. Officer, okay, great, let's go review. The 3 ladies' faces went pale, like ghostly pale. The officer reviewed the outside camera as I pulled into the parking lot and saw me take my son out of my car, and then as I went up and down the aisles, and most importantly, the instant the woman snatched up my son and began to run. Upon his return, he asks, Officer, would you like to press charges? Lady 1. Yes, I would. Officer, why would I be asking you that question? Be quiet and sit down. He turns to me and repeats the question. Me? Absolutely. Lady 1 was charged with attempted kidnapping, false imprisonment, providing a false police report, and child endangerment. The other 2 were also charged with providing a false police report as well. To make matters worse for Lady 1, my son bruises easily, and she left some terrible spots on him from where she was grasping him, but he's fine. This added a charge of child abuse to her rap sheet. I have court later this year, but I'm not sure when because of the pandemic. The officer will be following up with me in a few weeks. Story 6. Here's the rewritten content with grammatical and punctuation errors fixed, separated into proper paragraphs, and with other requested changes. I was conducting an intake for a new child at the daycare where I work. It involved a brief interview and a substantial amount of paperwork, typical bureaucratic procedures. I was in a small back office where we conduct all our intakes. The well-behaved child was playing with toys in the corner while I discussed allergies and other matters with the overbearing mother. The child quietly approached me from behind and retrieved a zip bag from my backpack. I keep a backpack with me because I usually go directly from class to work. In this backpack, I store bags containing extra doses of my epilepsy medication in case I forget to take them before leaving my apartment. The child looked at me and asked very sweetly, "Can I have some of this candy?" My eyes widened, and I quickly took the bag from him. Regaining my composure, I calmly said, "No, kiddo, this is medicine, not candy." The child immediately backed down. However, the overbearing mother became extremely upset. "Why can't he just have one?" she demanded. "What?" I responded, confused. She continued, her tone becoming increasingly unpleasant. "Just let him have one." "Ma'am, this is medicine, and I don't know what the side effects could be if he takes one without having the condition it treats," I explained. Attempting to speak under her breath, but failing to be as quiet as she intended, she muttered, "Selfish person." I stood up from my desk and called my colleague into the room. "What's the matter?" my colleague inquired. "Can you complete this intake for me?" I asked. "Why?" she questioned. The overbearing mother interjected angrily, "He won't let my son have any candy." She pointed to my bag. "My colleague and I have been friends for about 15 years, and she knows those are my medications." "That's not candy, ma'am. It's medicine," my colleague explained. "You are both being very rude. I am going to complain to your supervisor, the mother threatened. My colleague and I exchanged glances. Her office is 2 doors up on the right. Go ahead, my colleague informed her. The overbearing mother stormed off, dragging her child along. The well-behaved child even complained that his mother was pulling him too quickly and it was hurting him, but she simply barged into the supervisor's office. I couldn't hear the entire conversation through the door, but I did catch this. If you ever attempt such inappropriate behavior with one of my employees again, Child Protective Services will be notified, my supervisor warned. The overbearing mother and her child left about 10 minutes later. She appeared bright red and embarrassed. What struck me most was how quickly her child had backed down. To me, that was the most amusing part of the entire incident. And that's it for tonight, everyone. Hope you enjoyed today's episode, and I'll be seeing you later. Stay safe.